Think back to your very first social media profile. Before today's endless scroll, the internet was a digital Wild West, brimming with websites that were strange, wonderful, and now completely forgotten. These are the untold stories of the platforms that built the internet we use today, only to vanish. We're about to unlock the digital graveyard. We live in an age dominated by just a handful of massive digital platforms. We scroll through their endless feeds, accept their policies, and use their features, often believing this is the only way social media has ever existed. But the truth is, the foundation of our online world is littered with ghost sites and buried inventions. The history of social media is 100 times richer, weirder, and more ambitious than the modern internet allows us to remember. These are the 100 forgotten stories, from dial-up debates to viral dance videos that truly built the digital world. The Architect's Failed Blueprint, Stories 1 to 5. The path to modern social networking was paved by platforms that had the right idea, but the wrong timing or execution. 1. The 6 Degrees Prophecy. The concept of a formalized social network structure, complete with profiles, explicit friend lists, and affiliations like schools, was not a 21st century invention. The true blueprint was laid out by 6degrees.com, which launched in 1997. It was named after the foundational theory of 6 degrees of separation, representing the first real attempt to digitize that model of social distance. 2. The infrastructure gap. Despite registering millions of users, 6 Degrees ultimately failed, not due to conceptual flaw, but because the infrastructure of the internet had yet to catch up with the theory of pervasive social networking. Networks remained limited because the number of people globally connected to the internet was still too small. The concept was years ahead of the necessary broadband speeds and widespread digital adoption. 3. Friendster's HBS humiliation. When Friendster launched, it held the coveted first-mover advantage, aiming to link profiles based on real-world connections. However, the technical foundation was weak. The platform struggled chronically with performance issues and poor user experience. This collapse was so spectacular and instructive that Friendster earned the dubious distinction of becoming the focus of a Harvard Business School case study on how not to manage a tech company. The MySpace HTML revolution. Parentheses. MySpace achieved global dominance briefly by succeeding where Friendster failed. It allowed total user control. But this control came with a forgotten barrier to entry. MySpace essentially required millions of users to learn basic HTML and CSS just to customize their profiles, implement music players, and change layouts. This demand for user coding skills shaped an entire generation's digital literacy. 5. The arbitrary feature, the poke. Facebook's iconic poke feature, introduced in 2004, was notoriously and deliberately ambiguous. The company famously stated it would be cool to have a feature without any specific purpose. Facebook refused to define what a poke meant, leaving the interpretation, flirting, greeting, mild annoyance, entirely up to the users. This deliberate ambiguity maximized social friction and engagement, creating a viral feature out of thin air. This era highlights the innate human impulse to connect across digital distances, long before the internet became commercialized. 6. The Usenet Genesis, 1979. Before the modern internet protocols were established, NetNews, commonly known as Usenet, was developed and implemented by a graduate student as a distributed bulletin board system. 8. It is often regarded as the earliest true form of a social network because it served both professional and non-professional purposes. 7. Usenet's Social Revolution, PPP. The platform allowed users across long distances to participate in a huge variety of discussions, encompassing technical queries, solutions, detailed political debates, and even shared advice on personal topics like child rearing. It was celebrated as one of the oldest cooperative networks. The power of decentralization. Usenet's design was distributed, meaning its contents existed simultaneously across multiple sites. This foundational technical choice ensured that no single site or entity held ultimate control over the content, establishing a functional haven for free speech and anonymity that modern, centralized platforms cannot replicate. Usenet's jargon legacy. The platform had a profound cultural influence, giving rise to much of the early internet's culture, including the initial forms of digital jargon, collaborative spirit, and the collaborative nature that defines modern online communities. France's internet of the 80s, Minitel. While North America focused on academic and military networks, France developed Minitel, a national, profitable telecommunications system launched in the early 1980s. Users accessed services via specialized beige terminals, often starting their session by dialing the digits 3615 to connect to specific services. 11. Minitel's Social Panic, 1980. In a profound historical parallel, the French newspaper Ouest France expressed concern as early as 1980 that Minitel would separate people from each other and endanger social relationships. This demonstrated that the recurring cultural fear about technology isolating people is not a recent phenomenon, but shifts its focus to the newest dominant connection method. 12. Minitel's business model. Minitel demonstrated the profitability of a consumer digital network years before US competitors. By 2007, revenue exceeded $100 million, with a unique business model that allocated 85% of that revenue to the service providers. This centralized model, rather than the free, distributed model of the early US internet, proved that consumer digital services could be massively remunerative. 13. The TGV of telecommunications. Minitel was viewed with significant national pride in France. It was compared in importance to the TGV high-speed rail system and the Pompidou Center, highlighting its central role in defining the technological and cultural landscape of the early 1980s. 14. Banking on the little box. Crucial utilization of Minitel included high-security services like banking and finance. It was even used to facilitate essential public health services. With France Telecom, reporting 12 million updates to personal healthcare cards, Carte Vitale, being performed securely through the system. 15. The ubiquitous 3615 adverts. The end of Minitel's era was signaled by the prominence of commercial dating and chat services. Billboards featuring lip-pouting lovelies advertising the delights of 3615-something were ubiquitous across the country, showing the system's shift from essential services to entertainment and social chat before its eventual discontinuation in 2012. The Usenet versus Minitel comparison offers a critical fork in digital history. The centralized French model prioritized efficiency, security, and profitability, defining a structure later adopted by modern giants. Conversely, the Usenet model valued distributed control and anonymity. The tension between profit-driven centralization and community-driven decentralization remains the foundational conflict in digital architecture. This phase marked the shift from asynchronous bulletin boards to real-time, individual-centric communication. 6 Degrees, the first profile. 6degrees.com, 1997, allowed users to list their acquaintances and friends, whether or not those people were actually registered members of the service. This was a pioneering step, allowing the visualization of a social network that extended beyond the platform's active user base. ICQ. Launched in 1996, ICQ, derived from the phonetics of ICQ, was a revolutionary client because it was among the first standalone instant messenger applications. Before ICQ, real-time chat largely required complex platforms like Internet Relay Chat, IRC. ICQ made messaging accessible and centralized. ICQ's symbolic language feature, 2005. Around 2005, a profoundly forgotten feature appeared in ICQ, a symbolic language plugin. 13. This feature automatically replaced words in messages with corresponding iconographic emoticons, mimicking preschool educational materials, where icons accompany words. However, this attempt at rich media communication quickly vanished because it dramatically increased the size and complexity of every message, demonstrating that utility often must trump novel visual additions. Part 2. The ICQ Word-of-Mouth Blitz. Part 3. ICQ achieved massive initial growth purely through grassroots momentum. The business did not employ traditional marketing and relied almost entirely on organic word-of-mouth advertising, with users inviting their friends, showcasing the power of utility-driven viral loops in the pre-social media era. Part 2. WeView Best Embraces the AOL Chat Room Limit. Early America Online, AOL chat rooms enforced a strict cap of 23 concurrent chatters. This artificial scarcity created a sense of territoriality and high value for the space. 21. The culture of mining. In early AOL, profiles were sparse, lacking the detailed lists of height, hobbies, aspirations, and preferences common today. Users were thus compelled to mine information from actually chatting. This technical limitation enforced a certain level of social decorum and required users to build rapport through conversation rather than relying on blunt, profile-based judgment. 22. The Minnesota M4M Territorial Fight. The competitive nature of these limited chat spaces is exemplified by the anecdote of a user irritated that someone from New Jersey, NJ Dude, was occupying a valuable slot in a local room, Minnesota M4M. This incident illustrates the intensely local and territorial nature of early digital communities. 23. The Prodigy Wizard Watch. The educational game Prodigy, designed for math learning, included surprisingly robust, now forgotten, social features. One key feature was the Wizard Watch, alongside classmate and friends lists, turning the platform into a subtle proto-social network for children. 24. Deleted Prodigy Worlds. Even within this educational environment, social spaces were dynamic. Over time, Prodigy removed several in-game social hubs and areas, such as Harmony Island and Clockwork Town, reflecting the need for platform providers to continually prune features that fail to engage users. 25. The excitement of novelty. For many early adopters, AOL chat rooms are remembered fondly because they embodied the sheer excitement and sense of endless possibility of digital exploration. The novelty of connecting with strangers outweighed the functional limitations of the low-tech environment. The rejection of ICQ's symbolic language plugin, which added rich media at the expense of simplicity, illustrates a foundational lesson. Successful communication platforms prioritize utility and stability over novel features. Furthermore, the lack of data in AOL profiles meant that users were required to develop conversational skill to extract information. This scarcity of information paradoxically required more skillful social interaction than the current era of detailed, upfront profiling. Please be mindful and hear. Feel the comforting, relaxing voice. These pioneers secured early network effects, but failed to adapt or maintain technical stability against faster, more focused competitors. 7. Friendster's fatal flaw. Jonathan Abrams, Friendster's founder, conceived the platform to reflect authentic, real-world social connections. Yet, the core technical foundation was its fatal flaw. The site suffered chronic performance issues and a frustrating user experience. The case study's stigma. The rapid decline of Friendster, despite its first-mover status, became a cautionary tale in Silicon Valley. It was codified into a Harvard Business School case study, specifically detailing how mismanagement can derail an innovative technology company. Orkut's Google Neglect, 2004. Google launched Orkut in 2004, and the platform initially pioneered social networking concepts globally. However, Google spread its focus thin, diverting attention and resources to alternative social projects like Google Buzz, Wave, and ultimately Google+. This management decision resulted in chronic underinvestment in developer APIs and trust safety features for Orkut. Orkut's geographic dominance. Despite failing to gain traction in the US, Orkut became a dominant national sensation in Brazil and India. Critically, it was successful in bringing social media beyond the demographic circles of the young, upper-class, white users who characterized early Facebook and MySpace adoption. The mobile killer. Orkut's retention proved inadequate. largely because its mobile experience lagged severely behind its competitors. It also failed to implement a sticky ranked feed, which allowed Facebook's superior mobile feed to rapidly become the default habit for users. Brazil's tipping point. The importance of technical agility was tragically proven in Brazil, where the market tipped entirely. Facebook surpassed Orkut's dominance by December 2011. This geographic shift served as definitive evidence that optimization for the emerging mobile market was the single most crucial factor for social media survival and growth in the new decade. 32. The blog early, blog often mantra. Bebo. Founded in 2005, Bebo became exceptionally popular, particularly dominating the UK market, even briefly overtaking MySpace. Its name was coined as a backronym, blog early, blog often, indicating its dual focus on long-form blogging and social networking. 33. The $850 million AOL acquisition. Bebo's perceived influence led to its acquisition by AOL in March 2008 for a remarkable $850 million. This high-profile purchase underscored the platform's potential, yet the subsequent challenges and failed integration contributed significantly to Bebo's eventual decline. The Bebo Livestream. A key feature Bebo developed was the Livestream, which aggregated changes like new photo uploads, updated flashboxes, custom profile widgets and new videos, and newly added friends. This was an advanced, early iteration of the unified activity feed, now central to modern platforms. The Chinese Wangbao culture. In the early 2000s, social digital interaction in China was heavily centered in Wangbao, internet cafes. Pricing was incredibly low. The hourly fee could be 8 mao, or a flat overnight fee of 5 yuan. This created a unique, communal, and often intense physical social environment that shaped the context in which Chinese users adopted social applications, contrasting sharply with Western, individual home-based adoption. Friendster's failure shows that the technical stability of a platform is far more essential than conceptual superiority in the early stages of a network's life. If the platform is slow or unreliable, users will migrate immediately, regardless of the idea's genius. Similarly, Orkut's decline demonstrates that treating a high-stakes network as merely one of several competing projects, as Google did, ensures its demise. Massive network effects require singular organizational focus and dedication to mobile adaptation. MySpace defined a generation through intense personalization, public ranking, and the collision of celebrity and amateur culture. MySpace Tom, the selfie pioneer. Co-founder Tom Anderson was automatically added as the first friend of every user. His iconic, often mocked mirror photo is humorously credited with revolutionizing selfies, establishing the meta-genre of the self-aware mirror picture, long before Instagram. 37. The inescapable message count. MySpace featured a messaging system that made it impossible for a user to claim ignorance of correspondence, as friends knew the last time you logged on. This high visibility created a unique social pressure and obligation that encouraged prompt interaction. 38. The HTML power dynamic. To stand out on MySpace, users were functionally required to become basic HTML and CSS coders. The ability to deploy custom layouts, flashing backgrounds, and embedded widgets created a significant hierarchy of status and cool points based on technical customization skill. 39. The agony of the top 8. The feature allowing users to publicly select and rank their 8 closest friends generated unparalleled social anxiety and drama. This system weaponized social validation and scarcity, forcing users to constantly evaluate and publicly quantify their friendships. 40. The phishing survey trend. It was highly popular to fill out and share huge surveys that asked deeply personal questions, e.g., first pet, last movie scene, mother's maiden name. While intended as innocent connection and fun, this practice constituted a massive, voluntary exposure of data perfectly tailored for password recovery security questions and phishing operations. 41. Katy Perry's hybrid car pride. The archived MySpace page of Katy Perry in her early career shows a ramshackle, homemade aesthetic. Among the list of things to know about her, she noted, not a vegetarian, but drives a hybrid, offering a perfect time capsule of early celebrity self-branding, mixed with a dash of nascent environmental awareness. A pause. 42. Tom Hiddleston's cringe list. Even celebrities of note had surprisingly mundane MySpace profiles. Actor Tom Hiddleston's page revealed that his general interests were listed as the usual, and one of his favorite films was the comedy Meet the Fockers. 43. Lana Del Rey's impact font era. Lana Del Rey, then known as Lizzie Grant, committed the visual crime of using the aggressive, all-caps, impact font on her MySpace page. Her listed influences were also eclectic, including Coney Island and Britney Spears. 44. MySpace as the music launchpad. MySpace pioneered the integration of music and socialization, allowing every user to embed an auto-playing song onto their profile. This feature transformed the platform into the primary digital launchpad for emerging bands and artists, revolutionizing music discovery. The blog post confessional. MySpace supported a robust, long-form blogging feature where users released deeply felt, often emo, confessional entries. Crucially, the platform allowed users highly granular privacy controls, enabling them to mark these sensitive posts as private for only their top peeps. The Top 8 mechanic provided an early, powerful demonstration of the ability of platforms to gamify social anxiety and attention. This principle of weaponizing public validation became central to the design of all later social networks. Furthermore, the chaotic, customized aesthetic of MySpace proved unsustainable. Facebook's subsequent adoption of a uniform, stable profile layout showed that the mainstream public preferred scalability and reliability over the personalized but often buggy chaos of user-written HTML. The features we now take for granted were not top-down corporate mandates. They were often bottom-up, user-driven solutions. The hashtag's IRC ancestry. The hashtag symbol, the ubiquitously recognized tool for categorization, was first proposed on Twitter by Chris Messina in 2007. However, Messina did not invent the concept. He was inspired by its existing use in Internet Relay Chat, IRC, to organize channels and conversations. 47. The 2007 hashtag proposal. Messina proposed the use of the hash symbol to group related topics. Initially, the idea was met with internal skepticism by Twitter staff, but users quickly adopted the protocol for organizing content and tracking discussions, confirming its spontaneous utility. The retweet's manual birth, RT@. The mechanism for sharing content was also a user invention. The retweet began as an informal, user-developed protocol in March 2007. Users manually typed RT@ username to forward another user's message while providing clear attribution, establishing the social credit mechanism long before the platform integrated a dedicated button. The Echo and Retwitter shorthands. Before the stable convention of RT@ username was established, users experimented with various forms. Early variations included retweet@ username, Echo, and even the pun-based retwitter. This linguistic fluidity demonstrates the rapid period of evolutionary communication required for users to develop consensus on how to share information effectively. 50. The SMS character limit relic. Twitter's foundational design constraint, the 140 character limit, was not a philosophical choice, but a technical inheritance. The limit was taken directly from the protocol limitations of the short message service, SMS, standard, forcing users toward creativity and succinctness. 51. Zuckerberg's resistance to the like button. The ubiquitous Facebook like button, launched in February 2009, was implemented only after nearly 2 years of internal pressure. CEO Mark Zuckerberg reportedly harbored staunch resistance to the feature, fearing it oversimplified complex human emotions. 52. The deliberately meaningless poke. The poke was not meaningless. Its lack of definition was its core function. Facebook suggested that since the poke doesn't have any meaning, the meaning of the poke has always been left up to us. This ambiguity allowed users to assign their own cultural context, making it versatile. 53. The poke's decline. After approximately 2011, the feature's popularity waned. Users began perceiving the poke negatively, seeing it as annoying or disruptive, leading Facebook to gradually remove it from front-facing profile pages. Although the function still exists in a hard-to-access area. 54. The character limit relaxation, 2017. Before Twitter officially doubled the limit to 280 characters in 2017, it made a preliminary, forgotten change. Media links, quoted tweets, pictures, and usernames in replies were excluded from the original 140 character count. 55. The reblogging open source. The foundational concept of reblogging content, made popular by Tumblr, had open source roots. The first widely recognized reblog tool was developed at iBeam Art and Technology Center by a team that included Jonah Peretti. The fact that both the hashtag and the retweet originated as user-created protocols, later codified by the platform, highlights a pattern in digital history. Successful features are often discovered in the wild, as users try to overcome existing communication bottlenecks. Platforms that listen and automate these user-driven solutions gain rapid momentum. Conversely, Zuckerberg's initial resistance to the like button reveals an early understanding that reducing complex social feedback to a single metric while simplifying the user experience necessarily flattens emotional depth. The growth of social media quickly led to significant friction over privacy, data control, and legal liability. 56. The Newsfeed Uproar, 2006. In September 2006, Facebook introduced the Newsfeed and Mini-feed features. This triggered an immediate and widespread user privacy outcry. Users were concerned, even though the feature technically revealed no more information than before. 57. The Paradox of Control. The controversy arose because the new newsfeed made publicly available information much easier to access and aggregate. This ease of access created an illusory loss of control, demonstrating that privacy perception is not just about what data is available, but how visible and contextualized that data is when delivered via an algorithmic feed. The YouTube.com lawsuit. YouTube's choice of its domain name led to an unexpected legal issue. Universal Tube and Rollform Equipment, owner of the site YouTube.com, filed a lawsuit against YouTube in 2006. The smaller company's site was regularly overloaded by users mistyping the video platform's address, forcing Universal Tube to change its website address. The blogger copyright risk. In the early days of personal blogging, the primary reason creators faced legal trouble was the violation of intellectual property laws, specifically through the improper use of copyrighted images and written work. The Don't Use Copyrighted Images Trap. P. Many bloggers mistakenly believed they were safe if they provided credit, added a disclaimer, or immediately complied with a DMCA takedown notice. However, every image on the web is automatically copyrighted unless explicitly marked public domain, making bloggers liable for thousands of dollars in damages simply for use without explicit permission. P. Period. Verse A. Defamation minefield. P. Response. Period. Early blogging platforms and social media were rapidly forced to address content that crossed into defamation or harassment. Legal experts noted that this necessitated platforms and users quickly developing an understanding of libel and slander, often learned through lawsuits. Period. Verse A. The real name policy scrutiny. Facebook has long been criticized for its stringent enforcement of real name user requirement policies. Critics noted this policy negatively impacts vulnerable groups who rely on anonymity for safety or political dissent. 63. The PRISM scandal precedent. Long before the Cambridge Analytica data scandal, Facebook came under public and media scrutiny for its alleged involvement in the United States government's PRISM surveillance program. 64. The YouTube moderation triad. YouTube's content guidelines rely on a three-pronged system of enforcement: automated detection, human flagging, and human review. Crucially, the platform reserves exceptions for content that serves a clear educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic (IDSA) context, even if the content may otherwise violate community guidelines. 65. The 2007 policy shift. Since 2007, YouTube has used the Partner Program (YPP) revenue sharing model to monetize creators. This system requires YPP members to follow strict monetization and community policies, effectively creating a powerful, market-driven incentive for creators to police their own content to secure their revenue streams. The 2006 newsfeed controversy demonstrated that for users, privacy is a function of visibility and context, not merely access rights. When platforms aggregate and push data that was previously scattered, it constitutes a new, perceived violation. Furthermore, YouTube's adoption of the YPP model in 2007 shows an early recognition of content leverage. By linking the creator's financial success to policy adherence, the platform outsourced a significant portion of its moderation efforts to the creators themselves. Global platforms often struggled against localized competitors that understood unique cultural preferences. Mixi's Japanese Firewall, 2004. Japan's Mixi was a highly successful social network that maintained its dominance for years by enforcing strict localization. Registration required a valid Japanese cell phone number, effectively barring most people who were not current or former residents of Japan. 67. The culture of nicknames. Japanese internet users traditionally prioritize privacy and are hesitant to use their real names or photos online. Mixi succeeded precisely because it did not require real identities, encouraging users to use net handles or nicknames, which directly stalled the adoption of Facebook in Japan. 68. Mixi Station, the music graph. This application detected songs being played on a user's local media player, like iTunes, and automatically uploaded the information to a communally accessible list, creating an early, shared graph of musical taste. 69. Mixi's feature phone advantage. Mixi initially gained traction due to its superior user experience on feature phones, which were pervasive in Japan. It lost ground only when the rapid spread of smartphones made the superior apps of Facebook and Twitter more appealing. 70. LiveJournal's Russian survival. While LiveJournal, LJ, largely failed in the American market due to competition and ownership issues, it established a massive and enduring presence in Russia. It was eventually acquired by a Russian company and remains a significantly utilized social network there. LiveJournal offered exceptional tools for managing audience. It featured highly sophisticated privacy controls that allowed users to restrict access to entries and threaded comments, offering granularity that modern platforms often lack. Before the global standardization, many nations boasted their own popular, localized platforms. In Hungary, iWiv achieved massive popularity, illustrating the initial power of localized network effects. Forgotten platforms like Juvenation existed to serve hyper-specific communities, such as those diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. This demonstrates an early market for social networks built around medical and identity niches, rather than mass appeal. Chinese location-based fails, Jipang. The Chinese social media landscape also saw localized failures, such as Jipang, which attempted to capitalize on location-based mobile services in the early 2010s. 75. The Monster Strike Pivot. Mixi demonstrated a surprising ability to pivot its core business. After struggling significantly as a social platform in the smartphone era, the company achieved financial salvation and market turnaround in late 2013 by launching the immensely successful smartphone game Monster Strike. The dominance of Mixi in Japan demonstrates that cultural preferences, particularly concerning anonymity and privacy, can serve as a highly effective barrier against global competitors like Facebook. A platform must respect deeply ingrained cultural norms to succeed in a mature market. Furthermore, LiveJournal's long-term survival in Russia confirms the durability of network lock-in. Once an audience is established and culturally rooted, that network can survive external competition and outdated technology indefinitely. LiveJournal served as the definitive petri dish for modern fan culture, content creation, and subsequent policy drama. 76. LiveJournal as fandom ground zero. In the early 2000s, LiveJournal was the central gathering point, the ground zero for online fandoms. Communities organized around everything from niche anime to complex academic literary discussion. 77. The birth of slash fiction. The platform's structure, which allowed for privacy controls and discrete community groups, enabled the explosion of slash fiction, non-canonical, romantic, or sexual stories between characters. This creative form profoundly influenced how fandoms interacted with media. 78. 50 Shades LiveJournal origins. One of the most commercially successful examples of this fan culture is the novel series 50 Shades of Grey. It originated as Twilight fanfiction, published directly on LiveJournal before being adapted and published commercially, proving the platform's role as an incubation engine for literary trends. 79. The One Strike You're Out Exodus, 2007. After LiveJournal was sold, policy changes began to erode user trust. In May 2007, an incident occurred where administration controversially cracked down on accounts, resulting in a large-scale retaliatory exodus of content creators. And finally, 80. The Bold Through Technical Protest. And finally, the 2007 crackdown, sometimes known as the Bold Through or Strike Through, was specifically targeted at what management deemed policy-violating content. This heavy-handed moderation technique caused a massive wave of fanish content creators to leave the platform in protest, seeking new digital homes. The Kiki Cannibal Scene Queen drama. MySpace created an internal celebrity class known as Scene Queens. Figures like Kiki Cannibal achieved intense digital fame, characterized by highly toxic online controversies and drama that defined the social dynamics of the platform's subcultures. The sticky drama legacy. The highly public feuds and gossip of the MySpace scene spilled over into smaller, forgotten auxiliary websites like Sticky Drama and Stickum, which became specialized hubs dedicated purely to tracking and dissecting the conflicts of early internet micro-celebrities. LiveJournal served as the digital heart of early 2000s emo culture. It was widely used as a confessional, long-form diary where angsty teens could vent about their 16 to 21-year-old feels, creating a space for authentic self-expression. 84. The blog content segmentation. Users on LJ were highly adept at audience management, segmenting their audience and setting varied levels of privacy, open to all, visible only to friends, or strictly private, for only important people. This reflected a nuanced, for relevant self-expression. Early understanding of context collapse. 85. The legacy of the digital diary. LiveJournal's lasting influence is that it normalized the practice of the long-form, highly personalized digital diary. It proved that social media could sustain sophisticated, deep communication, not just brief status updates. The mass exodus of content creators from LiveJournal following the 2007 policy actions was an early warning to all platforms. Content creators hold the ultimate leverage. If a platform violates the trust or safety of its creative community, the entire structure can collapse overnight. Furthermore, the early success of anonymous or pseudonymous platforms like LJ allowed for a degree of artistic freedom and identity experimentation, such as Lizzie Grant becoming Lana Del Rey, that is severely curtailed by the modern internet's shift toward verified, professionalized, real-name identities. In the early 2010s, backlash against Facebook's centralization and privacy practices fueled the rise of ethical, decentralized alternatives. Diaspora's decentralized mandate. Diaspora was born out of profound frustration with the centralization of data and lack of privacy in dominant social networks. Its core mandate was to provide users with a truly decentralized social network where they remained in control of their own data. X.287. The pod architecture. The platform's unique structure was built on pods, individual server nodes that could be hosted by anyone. Users would register on a pod but could interact seamlessly with all other users across the breadth distributed network of pods. The Aspects privacy feature. Diaspora offered a groundbreaking feature called Aspects. Users could create distinct categories for sharing, family, work, hobbies, and designate limited posts to be visible only within the corresponding aspect. This system provided granular, sophisticated control over audience context. Section 89. The Zuckerberg Refutation. Diaspora's mission was explicitly anti-corporate. As stated by a writer, the goal was to allow users to communicate securely and without running exchanges past the prying eyes of Zuckerberg and his business associates. Section 89. 90 Up. Ello. The Anti-Facebook, 2014. Ello emerged as the ultimate ethical alternative in 2014. Marketed as the anti-Facebook, it promised a radical social experience, no advertisements, no algorithmic tracking, and a firm policy against selling user data. 91. The Hype Spike Crash. Ello experienced spectacular, short-lived popularity. During its peak viral moment, 35,000 people were attempting to join every hour, causing the platform's unprepared servers to crash repeatedly under the load. 92. The invite economy. Due to the intense, sudden demand, Ello was invite-only for a short period. The scarcity of access was so high that Ello invitations began trading hands and were actively auctioned off on eBay. 93. Ello's feature poverty. Despite its viral ethics, Ello quickly collapsed because it failed functionally. It lacked essential utility features, including robust search functionality, reliable notifications, and competitive mobile apps. Users quickly became bored and returned to feature-rich platforms. 94. Ello's niche pivot. After failing to capture the mass market, Ello tried to survive by pivoting to a specialized niche, shifting its focus toward art, photography, and web culture, adopting a visual style reminiscent of Pinterest. 95. The Betamax problem. The failure of Ello underscored a painful truth. One highly positive review suggested the network was fated to become the Betamax of social media, superior to its competitor, but failing to win popular traction. The analysis confirms that network effect and functional utility overpower ethical superiority every time. The rapid collapse of Ello serves as a powerful historical counterpoint. Even when users are actively angry about privacy violations and corporate tracking, they overwhelmingly prioritize convenience and existing connections over ethical design. For an alternative platform to succeed, it must be functionally indistinguishable from its competitor before its ethical stance can become a sustainable differentiator. Furthermore, the complexity of diaspora's decentralized architecture highlights the high technological barrier to entry required for true data control. A barrier the mainstream user base is reluctant to cross. Revisiting the concept of integrated social experiences, the educational math game Prodigy included the Wizard Watch feature. This tool allowed students to track the in-game activities of their friends and classmates, integrating social monitoring directly into the educational curriculum. The Where the Hell is Matt phenomenon in 2006. One of the earliest and most successful collaborative viral videos, Where the Hell is Matt, debuted in 2006. Game designer and traveler Matt Harding filmed himself performing a specific, simple, and humorous dance routine in locations around the world. It became an instant hit upon upload to YouTube. Unpack, Rinsence on the record, on ... Where the Hell is Matt? The video achieved unexpected cultural recognition when it was repeatedly featured on NASA's Astronomy Picture of the Day (APOD) website. NASA humorously claimed the video demonstrated that humans worldwide share a common love of dance, despite the video having no scientific or astronomical relevance. p. 99. The collaborative viral model. For subsequent videos, Harding pioneered a collaborative model by using social media to broadcast his next dancing locations. He invited netizens in those areas to participate in the filming, establishing a foundational precedent for mass, globally collaborative, user-generated content. The 1998 Yahoo Messenger launch. While often eclipsed by the rise of social profiles, the history of social media is intrinsically linked to instant messaging. Yahoo Messenger, launched in 1998, was a foundational application that provided essential, real-time text communication for the generation bridging dial-up and broadband. The global, organic success of the Where the Hell is Matt video provides a crucial historical benchmark. It showed the immense power of content driven by novelty and genuine human connection, rather than optimization for complex algorithmic feeds or ad revenue. This organic purity of early viral content is difficult to replicate in today's professionalized creator economy. The history of these 100 forgotten stories demonstrates that the lines between social media, messaging, and gaming were always porous, predicting the total convergence of digital experiences seen in modern applications. Conclusions: the enduring laws of digital history. The exhaustive history of the first 4 decades of digital connection reveals 3 critical, often forgotten principles that continue to govern the current social media landscape. First, technical stability and user experience, UX, are non-negotiable prerequisites for survival. The failure of Friendster and the subsequent migration from Orkut due to lagging mobile development prove that a superior social concept cannot overcome slow performance or poor accessibility. Scalability and stable UX trump innovative features and ethical positioning. Second, the relationship between platform and user features is symbiotic, favoring user innovation. Ubiquitous modern features like the hashtag and the retweet were invented by users to solve immediate communication needs on the fly. Platforms that listen and formalize these user protocols gain a massive evolutionary advantage. Conversely, the rejection of complex or intrusive features, like ICQ's symbolic language, shows that users will enforce simplicity when utility is compromised. Third, trust and visibility are the defining metrics of privacy. The backlash against the 2006 Facebook newsfeed was triggered not by new data exposure, but by making existing data too accessible and visible. This event confirmed that users perceive privacy loss when the context of their information is fundamentally altered by aggregation or algorithmic feeds. Similarly, ethical alternatives like Diaspora and Elo consistently failed because users, when forced to choose, prioritize the established network effect and functional convenience over the promise of decentralized data control. The digital present is shaped entirely by the lessons learned and repeatedly ignored by the pioneers of the digital past. The ghost sites remain important, not just for nostalgia, but because they carry the scars of the battles we still fight today: centralization versus control, privacy versus profit, and chaos versus curation. Every tap, every scroll, every shared moment is built upon a history of ambitious failures, user inventions, and forgotten digital communities. These are the foundations of the world we now inhabit.